So as Dave just mentioned, I'm the CEO, co-founder, CEO, and chief geek at Awesome. Two of our biggest brands are there up on screen, SmugMug and Flickr. They're both very large online photography platforms. And by way of background a little bit, I founded SmugMug in 2002, and then many years later, we bought Flickr from Yahoo back in 2018, so coming up on 5 years. And we are still family-owned and operated. I co-run the business with my brother, who's here, Ben, in the audience. And I have $0 of capital invested up on the slide, but Dave is correct. I did write a $20 check to the city of Mountain View for our first business license. So that's the total sum of the capital invested in the business. Tons of people use our products, hundreds of millions of people all over the world. And we store safely, serve beautifully, tens of billions of photos on behalf of our customers. It's a fun business. We love running it. I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you about how we have managed to survive all these years, quite frankly. Our mission is to build a better world through the power of photography. So everything that we do through this lens, and it helps us decide, what to do, but I'd say it helps us decide what not to do even more so. And we're competing with the biggest, richest, most successful companies on Earth. And by the way, they're competing with us, because none of them did photo sharing in 2002. They came after us, not the other way around. So I'm talking about the Amazons, the Googles, Apples, Facebooks of the world. They all have photo sharing products. They all have come into what I believe is our market. And they are difficult, ruthless competitors, as you can imagine. And their approach to innovation is not too surprising for those of you who have been around a while. They build lots and lots of products. They call it spaghetti. They cook some spaghetti, they throw it on the walls, and they see what sticks. Google, in particular, is famous for launching hundreds of products that don't last more than a year or two, and that's okay for them. Every once in a while, they get a Gmail, even though they had to close hundreds of other things down. The problem is that costs billions of dollars to do. I don't have billions of dollars. We're a tiny family-owned and operated Silicon Valley tech company. I know those words rarely go together, but that's us, right? This is not easy for us. So our approach, and one of the reasons I resonated so much once I got plugged in with Tugboat, is we have to be very careful about the way we approach innovation. We have to be very capital efficient. We have to be very time efficient. We have to realize and be intentional about the things that we do, and again, definitely the things that we don't do. Pragmatic innovation is how we live and breathe. And just to sort of level set the stage a bit, there's a lot of people have a lot of different definitions for what innovation is. To me, it just is doing something new. And importantly, it's not necessarily new in the universe. That's invention, and some innovation takes the form of invention. But if it's new to you, if it's new to your business, if it accelerates, it changes, improves the way you deliver value to your customers, that's innovation. Doesn't matter, whether you invented it in-house or borrowed it from some other company or you learned it at a TED-style talk at Tugboat. If you're doing it new, that's innovation as far as I'm concerned. And I want to touch on one of the biggest, most important innovations that we have experienced. This was actually on launch day when we launched the company in 2002. It's all been downhill since then. We haven't been able to come up with a better innovation than this one. And it was driven out of necessity and need. We didn't have any money, and I had spent a year building the company, writing the software and everything, and we just didn't know how we were going to fund it. The dot-com bubble had burst. There was no venture capital to be had, especially not for something as wild-eyed and silly as photo sharing. And so out of necessity, we invented a brand new business model. We invented consumer software as a service. Before us, there were no services online where you could just go as a consumer, sign up with your credit card, and receive some sort of service. This is before Netflix. It's before anybody else. And everybody told us we were just wild and could not pull this off. The internet was for free things. It was not, or e-commerce. If you're going to buy a book or something, that works. But subscribing to an ephemeral service where all you get is software in a web browser, it was never, ever going to work. And we thought it might not work also, but I thought it was a really good forcing function for us to figure out whether we should keep working on this wild project anyway. So on launch day, we required a credit card to sign up. You couldn't even take a free trial. You couldn't kick the tires. You couldn't see if it was a good product. And it worked. Customers signed up. They paid us an annual fee right up front for the next 12 years, and we were off to the races. It was amazing, and it is one of our biggest innovations. That one was straight-up invention. But I can talk about a couple of others that weren't. We just adopted them from other people. In 2006, we got on the remote work train. Now, it's a big deal now, as we all know. Back then, it wasn't unheard of, but it was pretty rare and pretty unusual. But we just couldn't find the talent that we wanted to operate our business in Silicon Valley consistently. We had run into many photographers all over the world who were eager to come and work for us. And as photographers, they understood our business, they understood our passion, they understood everything, but they weren't necessarily willing to move, but they would really like to help us and achieve our mission. So we just started hiring remote workers. And starting in 2006, the majority of the company has been remote ever since. Turned out to be a great innovation for us. Wasn't invention, clearly, but it transformed our company and accelerated our success. Same thing when we finally had the light bulb moment of hiring our own personal chef. That wasn't unheard of either, but we wanted to do it from kind of a different perspective. A lot of companies were beginning to add chefs or cafeterias or whatever in Silicon Valley as kind of a perk to draw people in. We didn't think that was a great use of capital at all. We aren't really big on perks just for perks' sake. But instead, what dawned on us is that we had a lot of employees who were going out for lunch and spending a lot of time sort of getting out of the office, waiting for their check, waiting to order, waiting to come back, like all this sort of stuff. But we all loved going out to lunch together as a great connective tissue for our business. So we put 2 and 2 together and determined that, hey, it would be more capital efficient if we actually had a chef because we'd save a lot on person hours. And lo and behold, not only did that happen, but all of a sudden we had fewer meetings because more people were just scheduling their meetings around these amazing meals. And they looked like that. It was amazing. Big transformation, great innovation for us. So in the early days, we got pretty distracted by a lot of shiny things. I still get distracted. Luckily, that's part of my job. I love shiny new ideas. I just absolutely love it when I hear about some new piece of technology or a new business model or a new approach to tackling something. But of course, we can't chase them all. Again, we're a tiny company, and we have very little capital. And so we have gotten much better through mostly scar tissue and experience at figuring out how to determine which ones are the right ones to chase, how far to chase them before giving up, et cetera, which I'd love to walk you through. And sometimes we chase them and they really work out. This is a photo of one of the very first iPhones sold to a pretty famous blogger at the time, Robert Scoble. He's wearing one of our hats because our team had all camped out overnight on the streets in Palo Alto waiting for the Apple Store to open and sell these first iPhones. I was maybe 2 or 3 people behind him, and we really felt early on, before we had even touched the device, that we would probably need to pivot the company and focus on mobile, because all of a sudden everybody would have not just a supercomputer in their pockets, but also a camera in their pockets. And at the time, this sounded like a pretty wild idea, but within a couple of days of getting my first iPhone, we had our very first mobile app up and operational. And a year later, when Apple launched the Apple Store, we were one of the first 30 companies to have an app in the official App Store. We definitely chased that hard. We saw it coming. We worked very hard to do so. But part of that was just, everybody had heard of the iPhone. Everybody, there were lines out the door around the corner at every store in the world for this. So maybe we were just chasing hype, right? Well, the hype cycle is real, especially in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of hype. Many of you may remember Google Glass from, a decade or so ago. It was very hyped. This is going to be the future of wearable computing and AR and all kinds of things. And importantly, like the iPhone, it had a built-in camera. So we were very interested. We were interested in the hype, and we got ourselves a headset and started sort of kicking the tires. And we quickly discovered that this was a different thing than the iPhone. This was not going to transform the world. So we started trying it out on my dog. He liked it a lot, but not nearly as much as my daughter liked using it to photograph my dog. And we decided at about this point it was probably not the right thing for us to chase and the right thing for us to invest in. So we moved on. But over the years, we've come to the conclusion that innovation is a lot like making an acquisition. There's a real due diligence process, much like when you get a pitch deck and you're thinking about buying a company. We must have seen well over 500 pitch decks for companies to buy in our careers here at SmugMug, and I think we've only made 3 acquisitions. So we look at a lot of them. They're all shiny and exciting and everything right on the surface, but we actually execute very few of them. And part of that is because there's like this established process, right? You can go get a degree in how to take a look at a P&L and a balance sheet and figure out is it a good acquisition or not. Innovation is a little murkier, and so again, it took us a lot of experience in scar tissue, but the similarities are pretty apt, right? Every time you decide you're going to change your business to innovate in some new way, whether it's a new piece of software, or a new business model, or a new approach to something, it costs time, treasure, and talent. And all of that time, treasure, and talent could be spent on something else. The choice to do one thing is also a choice to not do many other things. And then there's the need versus want, and some of this comes back to my love of shiny, new, exciting ideas. Many of those, when I step back in the cold light of day and look at them, they're really wants. Like, it sounded exciting to wear a thing on my head and have a camera on over my eye at all times, but we didn't really need it. We needed the iPhone badly because we could see that the world was going to transition that way, but it quickly became clear after we had a Google Glass for a few weeks that was a want, not a need, and it wasn't really that great. So super important part of the lens to look through is, does the business, does your team, do you really need this thing? Is it really going to transform your business, or is it really just kind of more exciting and shiny and new? And then, of course, we have gotten really good at applying the sniff test, which is, look, does this thing really pass muster? Is it, we have some salesperson in our office trying to sell us a new piece of software or whatever. That pitch is always awesome, right? It always sounds amazing, but really, is this addressing a real customer need? Is it addressing a real business need? Is it something that we really, really must adopt? Is it going to really move the needle? And another lesson we've learned is to avoid the innovation trap. And we've been here a few times and learned a lot each time. But many companies especially tech companies, fall into this trap of innovating just because it's really neat to innovate. Let's write this piece of software just because it's a really cool piece of computer science and the nerds in our industry will all think it's really cool. And okay, maybe we'll get to hire some super engineers because they'll read about it in the press or something. But it didn't actually address a customer need. It didn't actually accelerate our business. It just was kind of a shiny feather in our cap. And when you're a small company trying to be as capital efficient as we are, that's a big mistake. So we've been there, done that. Please don't do it. And then we have learned, again, through a lot of scar tissue, that building is our least favorite way to adopt some new innovative practice. We actually want to start at buy, right? We are laser focused on our mission, which is building a better world through the power of photography. So do we need to go and build every single piece of software that our company operates on, or every service, or reinvent every HR process or something like that? No, lots of that stuff we can buy. If we can't buy it, we might be able to borrow it. So we go there next, right? Is there an open source software package? Does one of our partners offer insight that we can borrow from them to deploy? And then last but not least, it happens, and we do a lot of it, then we get into building. But we always start at buy now, and that was not always the case. When we were a lot younger, we were eager to build everything and reinvent the wheel every single time, and performance management and hiring, and we tried to do it all ourselves. And believe me, there are experts out there that you can borrow this insight from before embarking on it on your own. And I want to talk about a really important time where we chose to buy some innovation, even though we had already built it. I got a phone call in late 2005 from Earth's biggest bookstore, and they had this odd sales pitch. Amazon wanted to sell us data center storage. Now, back then, all they really sold was books. They had just embarked on like CDs and DVDs too, but like they were not the everything store, and they did not sell any data services whatsoever. Meanwhile, my background was in data center operations, and we had built a really incredible custom homegrown storage system to handle the tens of millions, hundreds of millions of photos that our customers were giving us. So we were already experts. We had innovated our own solution. It was inexpensive, it was wonderful. But as I got to know the Amazon team, and I got to see how serious they were, and got to see how detailed and innovative their solution was, we decided to make the leap and become AWS's very first customer. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. For those of you that might not be familiar with it, we were their first customer in 2006. They are now something like a $50 billion a year revenue run rate business, growing at like 20 or 30% a year. It turned out to be a really great call for us. At the time, though, you can go and look up these news articles, everybody was making fun of us. They thought we had just done the wildest, stupidest thing ever because Amazon wasn't going to be serious about this. Were they really any good at it? It was clear that SmugMug was a world leader in this sort of storage. Like we had, to outsiders, seemed like we had bet the farm on something that was extremely shiny and extremely new and extremely risky. But it paid off really well for us in the long run. The next lens we use to kind of filter our innovation portfolio and our process is cultural alignment. Right? We've come across lots of great ideas to make a lot more revenue that just didn't line up with our values. We operate large photo sharing platforms, really large. We could have hopped on the like data mining, data gathering, let's like learn everything about you and then sell it out the back door and made a lot of money. And we looked at it. We gave some of those solutions the sniff test, and we could see that it would make a lot of money. But it's just totally against our values and what we stand for, what our mission is. We're trying to build a better world, not a privacy-invasive world. So we have passed over and over and over on those, even though they could, give us a lot of revenue. So super important that we don't, adopt some sort of innovation that somehow begins to degrade or erode or destroy our culture. And then last but not least, I think my favorite part of our process and of running this business is that we are laser focused on our customers. We don't have any investors that we need to worry about. It's all in the family, and we all run the business. Instead, we have been laser focused for more than 20 years on customers. And we have the most passionate customers you can believe. They're divinely discontent. When they are upset, we hear about it. And we hear about it day in and day out. And I love our divinely discontent customers. We have to be really careful about how we handle that feedback, because it is often not actually, they're not asking for the thing that they actually want. They can't necessarily see around the corner or see over the hill. They don't know that the iPhone is going to transform photography as we know it quite as quickly as we do, for example. So they often ask us for things, and we have to kind of get in their minds, do the research, get to know them, find out what the underlying need is. What is it that they actually want rather than just ask for? And that gets super polluted, again, with that hype cycle I was talking about. Our customers got really excited about Google Glass also. They want to wear a camera all day. Just turned out it wasn't a great camera, but they like that idea, right? And so it's super important for us to avoid the hype cycle, help our customers realize that we're not on the hype cycle train. That's not our kind of business. And that it isn't really what we want. Like, again, we could innovate for innovation's sake and get a couple of splashy headlines, but that doesn't move the needle for our customers. So figuring out what customers want and doing that is kind of our last line of defense for not accidentally spending too much time, treasure, or talent on innovating. So I'll give you a couple of recent examples. I don't know how many of you are familiar with NFTs, but they're this kind of weird idea that you should be able to buy and sell and trade digital artwork on a cryptocurrency blockchain. That's a broad overgeneralization, but we had a lot of customers, as you can imagine, as that hype cycle went through the last year or two, begging us to build an NFT solution and let them sell their photos on a blockchain. And we gave it the sniff test. It smelled kind of rotten. But we were looking at it. The hype cycle was very big and very real. So we definitely took a closer look. And one of the things I finally fell back on was, okay, I just want to start talking to some of our customers who are excited about this. And it turned out that while they were asking for NFTs, what they really wanted was simply to make more money with their photography. And we determined that, hey, the very best way to make more money with your photography is for us to do a better job with our existing core businesses. Let's help you find new customers. Let's improve the shopping experience. Let's improve the prints and gifts in our catalog, all that sort of stuff, rather than chasing this NFT thing. So that's what we did. We can now see the hype cycle is winding down or has completely imploded or whatever, so we dodged that one, thank goodness. We definitely had a lot of customers asking us for it, so we had to pay attention. We had to kind of run through our process here. Same thing happened quite a few years ago with VR. We had the VR resurgence. This is, I don't know, wave 3 or 4, depending on how you count. VR has been a thing for many decades, but it's hot again right now, and there are much better headsets and much better video games, at the very least, than there ever were in the past. So VR is here to stay, and it's real for sure. But we started hearing from some customers, and especially some photographers, who wanted to create some new kinds of art that they could use and display in VR. So we amassed all the headsets and had them in our office, and we were playing around with them and prototyping, trying to give them the sniff test. But again, when we got into it, it's not that VR is bad, it's just not that exciting for photography, was our conclusion. Not that amazing for photographers to create, and also not that amazing for people to consume. They have to get this big thing out and put it on just to look at a photo. We were pretty sure that swiping on your phone and stuff was a better experience. So we skipped that one. And then once we bought Flickr, we discovered that Flickr had not skipped that one. And actually, we had accidentally bought a VR experience on Flickr, which nobody uses. They still don't use it. So we dodged that bullet, but accidentally found ourselves with it after all. Similar kind of thing with the Apple Watch. Fantastic product, great launch. I love mine, I'm wearing it right now. We started to hear from customers that hey, I'd really like to be able to see, get notifications and see photos and stuff on my wrist. And for those of you that remember when it launched, everyone was making apps for the watch. You could get apps to bid on eBay on your wrist and whatever. There were thousands and thousands of apps because I think there was kind of a gold rush. People thought, oh, this is like the iPhone App Store all over again. And we built a prototype or two, and it was wow, that's a really small photo, and it's pretty low resolution. It's a little, oh wow, and it takes up a lot of storage. I think we're going to pass on that one, customers. And now, of course, most of us that still love and wear our watches, we actually only use a small handful of apps, and they're usually things around messaging and calendaring and fitness, and not photography. So thank goodness we dodged that one too. So as I wrap up, I just wanted to leave some key takeaways here for how you can approach filtering innovation and getting more capital efficient and time efficient and talent efficient on innovating in your own businesses, right? Start by treating innovation just like an investment or an acquisition portfolio. There is a process. You can do due diligence on whatever that shiny new idea that you think might improve your business processes, your manufacturing processes, your software services, whatever. Beware of the hype cycle. It's so dangerous. If you're not in Silicon Valley, maybe you have a little bit of an edge. It's very hard for me to get out of the hype cycle because I live and breathe it all day, every day. But it can be extremely distracting and extremely dangerous. Try to focus on needs versus wants. I hope that one we covered crystal clear. If you stray too far from whatever your core mission is, whatever your customers need, it's a big distraction. Definitely apply the sniff test. It's pretty easy to do, right? It's probably different for each person, each role, each company, but when something smells a little off, when it smells a little rotten, when it seems like the pitch is maybe too good to be true, it probably is. Avoid the innovation trap. Don't innovate just to innovate. Innovate because you're delivering value to your customers or your business or something. Make sure it aligns with your culture. Don't accidentally adopt something shiny and new that's going to erode the amazing cultures that we have in this room. And then last, but definitely not least, definitely most, deliver customer value. So thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.